Well, welcome back to another exciting, we have something special for you today on Frightfully Brilliant. Oh, of course, we're all here, and we have a guest. I got to introduce you to the guest, but just a second. First off, Morticia. Yes.
Hello.
And Gomez. Slappy. Yes. And who's this?
This is,
Thumper.
yeah,
Thumper?
I changed his name. He was Twitch when he got bought,
Twitch?
but I like Thumper. Thumper seems to be more, he doesn't seem a frightened rabbit at all.
Ah.
He's an evil rabbit with 3 eyes and horns, and he's beautiful. Thank you, Karen. He was our Christmas present, or was he Halloween present from our best friend Karen? So. Christmas and Halloween, what's the difference, right?
Yeah. Oh, that's great. And I'm David the Bruce. And today we are going to focus on Salem. You know, where they had the witches and all that? I mean, it's legendary. If you don't know about it, you've been living under a rock. Yeah. Well, and we have a very special guest, if I might say so myself. Her name is Megan Bruce, and she just happens to be, how could I have been hit by such good fortune, my daughter. And she...
He made that.
Huh?
I said he made that.
Yeah.
You know, when I have something cool I created, like, I made that.
Oh, I
Look
made
at,
that.
Look at this cool ring, I made that. So, like, my awesome daughter, I made that.
Oh, Lord have mercy. All right, so... So, my daughter Megan had this coast-to-coast trip this past summer, and one of the places that she really wanted to visit was Salem, the place that's famous for the witch trials. And we have a relative, no longer living, of course, Bridget Bishop, who was the first to be tried as a witch in the history of the United States. And so
I
she...
thought Salem was famous for its
Salem.
chocolate chip cookies. Was it the witch
Epic,
trial?
what? Chocolate chip cookies? What are you talking about? Salem has chocolate chip cookies?
Yeah, yeah.
I would think maybe Hershey, Pennsylvania, but what? And they're yuck? Wait, you haven't been to Salem yet, have you?
No, we're going just for the cookies.
So
with-
how would
with
you
our
know
friend
about the
Karen.
cookies?
Because it's a
What?
phenomenon, dude. It's everywhere.
What? Really? Did we get off track or did we get off track? All right. So. Love it. Don't you love it? Okay.
First of all, we want to thank you so much, Megan, for sharing this with us. It's very exciting. I've been excited since David mentioned it, bringing you on when I asked him to talk about his Salem family tree. So thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for having me. This is kind of cool, actually, because I haven't really talked about this in a minute. And
Well, awesome.
it's pretty exciting to have been there. I'll just jump right in. You guys are going soon. So I'm going to be like your future travel guide.
Yes.
Right? Okay. So when you go, there's lots of tours you can take, which is, it's good to get really like the full grasp of the history.
Are there any ones
through
to
the
avoid or
tours.
that aren't more hokey and the good ones to go for? Like,
Well, you want to go through the museum.
no, we definitely
Because
plan to do
That
that.
goes through the history, and they did a really good job of it.
Yeah, Karen mentioned that already,
Yeah.
so I know we're doing that.
And then there's a witch walk, which I would recommend going through, and you guys would like it since you're into the paranormal. And they, you'll do some like rituals with them and stuff, and they'll take you to around the town to all of the where everything like super unique happened in the town, and then to some new things, and they'll really explain the witch culture in Salem that has. Now there is a huge witch culture. Like, I mean, all the shops, all the, restaurants, they're all kind of focused.
It's kind of ironic because if there wasn't witchcraft going on at the time, just if they were wrong about that,
Right.
like some speculate, it's just like a self-fulfilling prophecy after you killed a bunch of people and did all that. Now there really is. So there you go.
Well, and even if there was witchcraft, which there was, this is what began
yeah, I
it
was
all
going to
because-
ask you what you thought. Like, was Tituba really a witch and did all that? Was there really?
Yeah, I believe so. I
I
don't.
kind of thought so too, but I was like, I think so. A lot of people they hanged weren't witches too. So
Well, okay, so Christianity comes around, right? But people, especially women, were still practicing certain things from, their from their ancestors. They were tribal. They had gods. They had the Celts, which a lot of them kind of derived from, were they prayed to Bridget. So they hadn't lost everything yet because of Christianity. But what had come in was, obviously Christianity, but all this new set of rules that all of a sudden they were supposed to abide. And for women, I think it was, I think how it all started was, it was like a night where, they were bored, they were sitting around, and they decided to, I think, conjure up a spirit that somebody had just lost. And that's where Tituba was like, oh, I know something about this, and I think that's kind of like the main belief of how it started. And then all the girls that were there were like, kind of, they got accused, and they're like, all right, well, let's accuse other people. And then someone, they started getting sick for whatever reason, whether they were faking it or there was a fever going around, who knows? Or if it really was like, they were afflicted by something evil.
there's so many theories that go around, and what I think is just we don't know.
Well, what we do know is that, who's the main accuser? Why can't I think of her name? Who's the main accuser's name?
I watched so much it just all blends. I don't want to say that.
Okay, well, I'll think of that later. But the main accuser, she, before she died, she said that she had made it up. So, as angry as people were at her and hated as she was, she at least had, the guts to say that, no, she made it up. And when you get into the history, you'll see that one of the biggest driving forces besides these girls was actually the governor of so Salem wasn't just the little town back then. It was like this huge area in Massachusetts. It's more like a county today. It was huge. So anybody who would get accused, their property would go to the governor. He would take it over. So there's a lot of...
That was beneficial.
Yes. So for a lot of people, they lost... There were a lot of landowners, and they lost out because somebody wanted their land. A man was crushed to death because he would not leave his property. And that was one of the ways they tortured him to get him to say that he was a witch. He never did. I don't remember how long. I think it took him about 6 or 7 days to die, and they just every day he wouldn't admit, and they just put more and more rocks on him to like weigh him down.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, and the first woman that was accused was an old lady actually, and I don't think she was ever hung, but they put chains on her. This is like an old frail lady, and so every day she wouldn't admit, they put more and more weight on her, and it would just like crush their bones, So there's like really horrible torture techniques that they use.
Did you feel the imprint from those angry ghosts left there?
Oh, it was sad, and yes, it was angry.
Mm-hmm.
I was angry. I'm a mom of a little boy, and one of the women accused, Sarah Good, I believe it was, she had a 4-year-old daughter, and they interrogated a 4-year-old basically until she admitted that she was a witch because she's 4 and she doesn't want to be in trouble, or get hurt or whatever they were threatening her with. So she's like, yeah, and then she's like, yeah, my mom is too. So they imprisoned the 4-year-old. the mother's pregnant, so they can't hang her until she gives birth. She gives birth, of course. I believe the baby dies shortly after because prison, wasn't very good even in today's standards. It's not good, today's prisons aren't good, let alone, what is it, 300 years ago, or no, how long ago is it now? I'm way off.
Yeah, 1690s something.
Okay, so, anyway, so then the 4-year-old, her mom's taken away from her, hung. She stays in prison, and then her dad, it takes him like 8 months to raise 50 pounds or whatever it was to get his little girl out. And of course the little girl's insane after this because she's been institutionalized, her mom's been taken away, and she's been accused of going along with the devil. What 4-year-old should ever have to go through that, So it ruined whole families, and it destroyed, obviously it destroyed the whole community, but it literally killed entire families. It was awful. Where my family, my dad's family comes in, so we came over in first shipments and colonized, Massachusetts area and Philadelphia later, and let's see. So we are a direct descendant from one of the accused and murdered, and then one of our cousins, who is Bridget Bishop, and then Thomas Farah. He is in our direct line. So they were both accused, and Bridget Bishop, she was the first to be hung. Her thing was, this is where the governor comes in. Actually, I can't remember if it was the sheriff or the governor, but it was someone of high rank, that controlled the area. She was a widow, and she had this huge apple orchard right in the middle of Salem. And if you go on this witch trial, they'll show you where all her land was. And her apples were perfect. Her harvest was abundant.
Oh, she was definitely a witch then.
Yeah, and she was a woman who owned land. She accrued that land because she was a widow, and her husband and her owned it. When her husband died, she kept it up. But because she's a woman, she owns land, and oh my gosh, her apples are so much more amazing than everybody else's. She must be a witch. And then the sheriff or whoever, accumulated all that land and got her product and her apples that she worked on.
But he didn't mind using them.
Oh no.
Yeah.
No.
Serious.
Even if it meant she had to die.
Right.
So,
or that she was a witch and he has to use evil apples now, but they're not evil because they're his now. So.
Right. So there is a restaurant you can go to. I will give you the name of it as soon as we're done filming because, I can't remember any names apparently.
I know, I feel you.
But it is a very. I think it's one of the oldest, and it's a very popular restaurant to go to. And
do they serve food from the time?
No, nothing.
I love authentic
Nothing
food,
super cool like that, but really good food nonetheless. But that is Bridget Bishop's home.
Whoa.
Yes. So after I did these tours, I went and sat down at one of my, bazillion time cousins' home and had lunch, which was odd because it's I'm connected to this woman, not just because I feel horrible, anger for her and what she had to go through, but then also, we have blood that's similar, so it's always kind of connects you a little bit more, and then Thomas Farah, he was the man that was accused. He was an elderly man.
Is he the one that had the stones?
No. But it was. I just read it. I think it was having to do with land as well. Or was it? No. It was one of the girls said that he came to her at night and he pinched her and tried to choke her. Which is what a lot of them said. Oh, he came to me or she came to me last night and pinched me, and just teenage girls got way out of hand. They didn't even realize, I think, the effects that they were having maybe they did and they didn't care. I can't imagine that. I just don't think they realized the severity of it.
That's kind of what I meant earlier when I said, like, we don't really know what happened. I meant, like, in the heads of those
Oh,
who can't tell
sure.
us. Because, you know, a lot of times, even today, I'll try to put together why somebody did something or what they meant or why they did that. And then when I find out their reason, it's nothing close to what I was thinking.
Oh, yeah.
I'm trying to
for sure.
rationalize
Yeah.
it or make it make sense. And usually it still doesn't make sense. And it's like, why did I even ask? Because now my mind's really blown. So you just can't ever imagine. And we tried, and I think historians are trying to make it make sense and make it orderly. And it probably just wasn't like something we would even go there.
Yeah, no kidding. So there's Proctor's Ledge, which is where they were all hung. Which,
That had to have some weird, not good energy.
No, not good energy at all. No, I did a little ritual at the top of Proctor's Ledge, snuck past the cameras there. And you can look up rituals that you can do, and I did ancestral rituals, and then there's the the graveyard, which is actually the oldest graveyard in America. A Caucasian graveyard in America, and there they have a monument set up for everyone that was murdered, and they're just like a little bench to sit on. I think altogether it was 13 people were hung. I mean, I think way over like 100 or 200 people were imprisoned for it and accused of it, but yeah, there was 13 that were actually hung. And then, of course, Thomas was one of those as well. So there's like a little bench that you can sit on, or you can put flowers down or coins or whatever you want and pray. But
He's a medium and a sensitive, so I don't know if he'll run a risk the graveyard. He usually doesn't like those. Because he sees too much and gets too much input. Like, I can't imagine. Like, I'm glad I don't.
Yeah, you can. I mean, I think even if you
I'm sure
don't
I
have
still
those
feel something,
senses,
but
you'll pick up energy.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, even as soon as you cross that gate into the cemetery, it's just.
Do they have tombstones with the names up, or like?
They do, but they're so old, you can't tell. There's a grave for the sheriff there, or no, was he? Man, I'm really bad at all these names. I think he might have been one of the judges. And it is one of the most messed with grave in all of America. So there's always like vanity to it, or I don't know. There was like an upside down American flag in front of it when I was there, which I did pick up and place correctly, but had more to do with the flag than the grave. But it's just, I mean, there's always something bad on his grave because of what he did to so many people, and judged so many innocent people falsely for his own gain. So it's amazing, tons of things to see. And then nowadays, Wiccans, like, they flock there. So, I mean, the whole town has been taken over by, modern day witches, which is really cool because there's so many, like, interesting people there, and spiritual people, and people that you wouldn't, normally see. Even if you know Wiccans or witches, or however you want to say it, they don't present themselves, like that all the time. But these people are just fully out, and they fit in there, which is why they can be fully out. So I think that was one of the coolest parts of it, because the history of it is so, so terrible, and it makes you so angry, and it just, especially for me, anything with kids, I can't handle, which is why that particular story of the 4-year-old girl affected me so much. And they were putting kids into prison, for no reason. It was just hysteria.
And at that point in time, it's a little surprising because you think they would be a little less ignorant, but no.
Yeah.
But then you look at the world today and you go,
Right.
okay, it's human hysteria. It's not about the time period.
Yes.
It's just
Yeah, no,
humanity
that's exactly right. All the killings were slowing down. Witch trials. Because in Europe, what they went through was just
Yeah, and so you
Yeah,
thought, I
I
was
mean,
always
it
surprised,
would've-
like, that's still happening. But then again,
Right,
Hitler
even-
and the stuff today, it's just people are going to be
Huh.
people. And they
That's
can be,
interesting.
yeah, if you think about it
Yeah,
that
we were
way,
just
of
talking about this.
humanity versus just a time period and what was acceptable. People can still be riled up to be crazy.
Oh yeah. Yeah, anybody will jump behind it, and then people will just start looking to who can I accuse next, and
I want to be part of the
Right.
Stuff Club. Like,
that's it. Yeah, that's it. But what we have to and should remember is that these witch trials wiped out whole villages because they would kill all the women. Without women, guess what? You're not going to reproduce. So entire villages in Europe were just wiped out because of this witch hysteria. Which a lot of times it was, midwives is how it started. And then it continued, after Christianity hit Europe, it just...
and they did accuse a couple men.
No, yeah, men got
Yeah,
accused
it
too, but in the beginning it was definitely a direct, it was directed towards women. Because and women midwives, especially because it was one of the occupations women could have that wasn't, that's it. That was one of the only occupations women could have was midwifery. Why wouldn't women help other women give birth? They've been through it. They know what it's like. They know all their parts. They know how this, and they're nurturers. So it makes sense that women would do that. But all of a sudden, it was like, no, this should be a doctor's job, and men are doctors, so how do we get rid of all these midwives? Well, they're witches, because this is a man's job. And that's how it started, and then it just, it progressed into
I was
this
reading how they
hysteria.
would blame if the cows died or if
Oh, yeah.
anything happened, they want to put it on the witches.
Yes.
And I think part of that is human ignorance, that they don't understand why something happened. So,
Yeah.
like, you don't know science, you don't know the cow was
Right.
unhealthy anyway,
Right.
so you have to put it on somebody. And my allergies, sorry, excuse me. I think sadly today we're still at the point that a lot of times we don't understand, and that people still blame.
Yeah.
It's just sad. It's like history keeps going. You don't know why it's happening, so it has to be somebody.
Yeah.
And instead of just, why is this happening, let's research instead of assuming it's a witch, whatever. Sad.
Yeah, and now we have other names for witches, but we're still doing the same thing, right? Yeah, well, I hope you guys super enjoy your trip.
So is there
This is
anywhere
awesome.
you didn't think was worth going to, or like, or the best places you...
Well, since you're wearing a dress from,
Hocus Pocus.
thank you, Hocus Pocus.
Sarah.
There are sites that you can go to.
The filming, right?
Yeah,
The movie,
so the park is there. It's like right in the middle of town. And then you have the school, the gymnasium
Oh, yeah.
that they had the
from
dance
movie
at.
scene, yeah.
Yeah, so you can...
Where, when he did her song.
Yes.
Yeah. That's cool.
So those kind of...
What about the supernatural stuff, like, other than the things you said you felt already, like when you went to places, did you...
It was like I had something extremely strange happen to me that whole day. I don't know if I'm ready to talk about it.
I
but-
have had some stuff happen to me that I mean, you're not going to be discredited. If you don't, I respect you.
No,
if
it's
you
not
don't,
so much
but
that, but
I have had stuff that I would have thought I wouldn't have believed you,
Mm-hmm.
but I know because it happened, and I was crying for days, like, over stuff. And it wasn't that I cry easily, it was
Yeah.
that I knew I wouldn't have believed you. And that's a lot to carry.
Oh no, I get it. No, this is just something that was kind of personal that happened, but I didn't know it was happening, but I knew something was happening, and I was walking through the town all day and going through this. It was physical, and I was just wondering what it was the whole day, and I had an overwhelming sense of like a child, and like with me all day.
Well, I was gonna tell you, I don't know if it's a kid, but I do feel like a presence around you, and I usually don't. And I was gonna ask him if he saw anything, and I was like, that's gonna sound hokey because, like, oh, I'm feeling something, and it's going to sound, and I don't usually, but do you see anything? Like,
Yeah, I think so.
And I was like, I don't know I didn't know a child or not child. I felt maybe female and strong, like
Yeah,
not
it's-
bad.
It would be a woman child.
But I was just
Or a
like, I
female
think
child.
something came with you, but it wasn't bad, so I didn't
Mhm.
want to be like, and I usually don't even feel anything, so I was like, that's gonna look too hokey. But now I'm like, okay,
It feels like shy or something, reserved.
well that would make sense, I guess.
Perhaps maybe I should just say it, and if I'm not comfortable with it, we can edit this out. Okay. Here we go. I arrived into Salem at like 2:30 in the morning the day before I got there. And I was going through a lot. I was dealing with a lot of just difficult people at the time for work. And I got there and there was no like hotels open. And I think there was one open, but the rooms were like $300 a night. And I'm like, there's no way I'm not going to spend $300 to sleep for 6 hours, have to get up and pack my bag, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I just like, I slept in my car on the beach. And, which I'm totally okay with doing. And,
Hey, it's free.
it is free, yes. And I like sleeping underneath the moon. I like picking up the energy from the moon. So it was a pretty full moon that night. And, I woke up. And this is actually kind of a sad story. I'm just gonna go for it. Okay. I woke up and I woke up in I was sitting in blood. There's blood all around me, and I just thought it was my period. So I went and cleaned myself up and tried to, because I mean there's a lot of blood, and I cleaned myself up and I went back out to my car and I cleaned my car and it was awful. I was like, I've never had a period like this, And then I always had 2 rings that I always wore. One was my birthstone and the other one is my son's, which is a ruby. And I'd had it for years and my ring kept scratching my leg, so I looked down at it and, it had like 4 prongs that held the jewel in. The prongs were still down, but the ruby was gone. So I just had this overwhelming sense that my child had died. My son had died, because I have a son. Mm-hmm. So I called, he was with my ex-mother-in-law at the time. I called her right away. I was like, is Easton okay? Like, I feel like something really bad happened to him. I almost feel like he died. And Tara was like, she just kind of laughed at me, and I'm like, no, Tara, please just, you're a mom, you know how these feelings are. I was like, please just keep a really close eye on him all day. And she's like, okay, Megan, and I couldn't shake this feeling. I felt like sick to my stomach, and I was hurting so bad. And the day went on, and there's this red, this is getting interesting, there's this red like line, it's like the width of like a street line, like a white street line, but it's red and it goes through all the sidewalks of the city. And every time I would come across the street where this line was, I'd start bleeding and I'd have to go find a restroom. Like, I had to change my clothes like 3 times that day. It was just blood all day. And then I finally, I think, I thought when women menstruate, you're dumping like everything that you've been holding on to this month. You're dumping all that stress, all that, and a lot of women bleed into the earth because you're just giving it back to Gaia kind of thing, So I thought that's what it was, like all this stress and having, like, I felt like I was carrying these burdens, and even for my ancestors, and I'm just, I'm releasing it. So, anyway, it continued for 3 days after Salem, and I went to the hospital, and I had a miscarriage that day.
So sorry. That's what I thought. I'm so sorry.
It was, I didn't even know. I had no idea I was pregnant. I had 0 clue. And that same, when it happened, the ruby went missing that day. I had this overwhelming sense of just, my child died. And it was it was intense, and it was really intense. And I can't believe that it happened the day I got